Alright, welcome back to how to build an F-14 Tomcat. I know I told you guys last time that I was going to try and make more videos, but time just hasn't been conductive to doing that. But I have been doing some work on the F-14, so don't think I've been sitting around doing nothing, being lazy. As you can see right now, I've got a vertical fin and I've got the ventral fin set up in the parting planes, and they've got the 2 coats of surfacing resin already laid down. Since the last video, I've got both flaps, I've got the canopy frame mold, the nose cone, the vacuum form canopy plug, both flaps, both horizontal stabs, 1 vertical fin, pretty much all of the molds except for the fuselage stuff, and the 2 wing panels are all done except for the 2 I'm laying up now. I'm going to lose about 2 weeks of work here fairly soon through the week of Thanksgiving and then the week after, because we are moving. So I'll end up in a new house with a larger shop and a lot more room to go with it, more storage and everything. So I'll actually be able to get you guys hopefully more videos that actually show everything's going on instead of just these little 1 video every now and then. So far I'm still on track for getting the molds completed by the end of the year, except for a couple here and there that I can't get done until the molds are done. So we should have some layups starting probably February time frame, as I'll be gone. I'll be out for work pretty much the whole first half to 3/4 of January. But yeah, so for those who are just now kind of tuning in and haven't watched the previous videos, basically you're probably wondering what the heck's going on. And for those of you who've been watching and carrying on, you pretty much know what's going on. But for those who don't, I'll just kind of recap. I've got the actual part is built, detailed, everything I want, and then it's basically I take a piece of melamine shelving board. You trace and you cut the shape of your part out. You lay your part halfway through there, so in the case of like a vertical fin or something, you have the melamine board is kind of cutting that leading edge right down the center line. You set your part down in there. You use some hot glue to kind of elevate it to the right depth or height, that however you want to put it. Then you pop the part back out, wax it everywhere, put it back in, take some body filler. In my case I'm using Evercoat Easy Sand. And with your part back in there, you put that Easy Sand between the part and that melamine board, which is your parting plane. Get that in there, let it cure, pop your part out, sand it nice and flush. Do that until you're happy and you've got a really nice crisp edge around your part everywhere. And then put your mold locating keys, in which case I'm just using some nylon or rubber furniture bumpers that you get from Home Depot. They're like 1/2 inch in diameter. Put those down on your parting plane, that melamine board around it. The more the better, I think, just because it kind of helps key everything together, and more is always a little bit easier. That way if you don't have to worry about the 2 mold halves kind of sliding apart halfway between them because they're 12 inches apart. I typically try and keep mine no more than 4 or 5 inches apart, 6 at the absolute max. So you get all that done, put your part back in there, or your plug, wax the whole thing, get that ready, spray some PVA. I'm using the pink stuff, or purple as it looks in the bottle. Once that's done, you take your surfacing resin, which I'm using the Adtech ES201 PC, which is a room temp cure. Put 2 layers of that down. First layer, then let it cure to where you can Stick your finger on there, pull it off, and no resin transfer to your finger, but you'll leave a fingerprint in it. So it's just a very light, tacky feeling. Do that twice. And then your second time, after that, you're going to take a mixture of your laminating resin and some cotton flock, which is what I'm in the process of doing right now. And you're going to go all around your 90-degree joints, and you're going to use that cotton flock and resin mixture, which should look like that. You pull it out and it shouldn't fall off. And then you're gonna put that all on your little 90-degree joints around your parting plane, your locating keys, dowels, whatever you want to call them. And then once you get that done, you're gonna start laying your fiberglass cloth down right over afterwards. You'll see this mold's a little more complicated due to the front there and that lower fairing. I've actually got two sets of parting point. I got this vertical one here at the trailing edge. Then I got another one there at the front of this fairing. The reason for that forward one is because there is a NACA duct there, and if you try and just mold that thing at the front all in one piece in half where the NACA duct and all is, you're just going to end up locking that mold to the front there, and you'll either break your part or you'll break your mold trying to get it out. So that's actually got to be a separate piece from the left side and the right side. Again, I'm taking this cotton flock and resin mixture and I'm putting it around these little locating keys. And then just kind of flaring the flock in around these dowels into the surface resin around it. So for those who've been keeping up with the videos, it's all just the same as the same old wash, rinse, repeat process. My plan is to have this mold completed, that ventral fin completed, and the overwing fairing hatch molds done by next weekend. So basically a week from today. That way, once we get to the new house, I can unload everything. I can build a few new tables. I'm actually going to build a larger one for the F-14 to sit on for the whole molding process. And then the first molds that will get completed at the new house will be the two wing panels. I get those done. Then I'll work on getting that fuselage molded. If you're curious, I mixed up 100 grams of resin, put in 25 grams of hardener, and then I put probably 3 or 4 ounces of cotton flock in. To get the consistency I was looking for. And that's just enough to do a little over half of the area of the mold here around these corners. mix up some more resin. So at the new house, I'm going to have a full 2-car garage to use as a shop. I definitely will be building a CNC router at some point next year. So I'll do a little bit of a video series on doing that. I've still got the vacuum system to make up. I finally picked up a tank the other day that my dad had laying around, and it's just an older 10-gallon air compressor, little roll around one that the pump had gone bad, and since the pump was bad, my dad just had it there, and I picked up the tank from him. So the tank will actually be used as a reservoir. That way you can instantly pull a vacuum on the bag for the part when you're making parts, and you won't have to wait for it to suck it down. I've also decided that due to the size of the fuselage, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a hand layup and then vacuum bag it. So I'm going to, the prototype will probably be hand laid up just to kind of get a feel for things and where I need to add some material and where some can be taken away in the interior structure, just to figure out the strength of it. But everything after that's going to be vacuum infusion, which you put all your cloth and your foam reinforcements, your honeycomb or whatever inside the mold, and you pull a vacuum and you don't put any resin on it whatsoever. And then after you get everything in there, you can release a little bit of that vacuum. You can move some of the layers around. You can move your foam reinforcement or your honeycomb or whatever around, get rid of any creases. And you just have basically you have an unlimited amount of time to do your layup before you add any resin. So you can put everything in there, get it under vacuum, get it all nice, straight, get everything exactly where you want it. And if there's any wrinkles or creases in the fabric, you can actually smooth all that back out. Then you'll put the full vacuum on it, and then you have a couple of ports inside your bag that were clamped off, and you'll unclamp those, and then you'll mix up your resin, you'll unclamp those ports, and then you will literally let the vacuum suck your resin into your bag, and you can actually watch the fabric wet out as the resin moves through your vacuum bag. And what that does, it actually gives you a lighter and a stronger part for the most part if you do it right. But typically before you figure it out, like where your resin inlet ports need to be and all that, you typically waste a lot of material. So it'll definitely be a learning experience. But it'll save a lot of, after a couple, probably one or two wasted air for fuselages at least, I'll figure out the process of it, and I'll actually be able to make straighter and longer parts. I'm shooting for a 20 kilogram weight limit, which is basically, that's going to be a dry weight, and that's the weight limit for the World Jet Masters. So if I can get this airplane to be 20 kilograms, which is right around 44 pounds, I will be extremely happy. And that 44 pounds, I mean, it's going to include all the scale detail you can possibly get, the cockpit, slats, spoilers, speed brakes, lighting system, I mean, pretty much everything I can think of. So I would think probably full airframe weight minus landing gear and all that stuff, I'm thinking I get around 10 to 12 pounds is what I'm hoping for. We'll see if it actually happens. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, then we'll figure it out later. But that's the plan so far, and that's what I'm going to try and stick to. Again, I'm just mixing up resin and cotton flock right now for those corners. And I'm just using a little clear epoxy mixing cup. Take a scoop of that out at a time, put it in here and mix in with the resin really thorough. You gotta be sure you get to the bottom of the cup, or you get like a really runny spot, really runny mixture at the bottom, and you get a really thick mixture at the top. And then once you get the consistency you want, you can start slapping it down on there. This is actually a process they use in the full-scale home built arena where they're building a real airplane, and they'll actually mix this stuff up, and they've actually got different terms that they call for how wet or how dry the mixture is between your epoxy and your cotton flock. You want to get a nice fillet in all these corners. That way it the cloth can just smoothly transition from a flat to the next flat when they're 90 degrees like this. Otherwise you'll get an air bubble right there and you'll have a weak spot. Same goes for any little areas that stick above the typical mold area. Like I've got a little detail right here that's not very pronounced right now, but on the actual part it's probably about 3/32 to 1/16 of an inch above the rest of the surface. And you got to put a little bit of this cotton flock mixture over that as well, as small as it is, just so it just so you don't get air bubbles right there up against it. And again, even though this leading edge is extremely narrow, it's almost knife-like, I'm still putting this stuff right there in the corner just to give that cloth a nice gentle transition from one surface to the other, just to keep it from getting those air bubbles built up. Alright, we'll do the same thing here on this ventral fin. Basically, like I said before, it's just a whole lot of the wash, rinse, repeat process. And very time consuming. You'll notice in pretty much all of these videos I've been doing, I do at least one mold, if not, well, typically I do at least 2, if not 3 at a time. It takes a little bit longer that way, but you get them done a little quicker. But you do have to work a lot faster just to keep that resin from setting up, and you got to bounce from one to the other and try and keep the same weights cloths going out at the same time. This ventral fin has an aqueduct on this particular side that's fairly large. I will fill that whole duct up with this epoxy microballoons mixture. Instead of trying to get the cloth to go down inside of it, I just fill it up. This cotton flock stuff is extremely strong. Alright, now I'm just going to take a piece of 2-ounce fiberglass cloth, and I am going to lay it down over that whole thing. I haven't put any resin down, as you've noticed. This cloth is still, or the white resin, the surfacing resin is still fairly tacky. And then the microballoons, or the cotton flock mixture, will help the fiberglass cloth stick. Then I'll just take the brush I'm going to use for the laminating resin here, and I'll use it to smooth out this first layer of cloth. Same thing goes here for this ventral fin mold. So since it's kind of late tonight, it's about 10 o'clock now on Thursday, I'm going to let this set up until Saturday morning. And while this sets up and gets a real nice 24+ hour cure, I will be getting those 2 overwing fairing patches ready to mold. And I will probably start working on at least one, if not two, of those molds tomorrow. So there, I just cut the fiberglass right down along the seam edge where it goes around this corner on that vertical parting point. And I'll do the same down here. Cut this one slightly at a different angle so it rides up on this side a little bit. Brush that down there. Do this twice since it's wanting to wrinkle on me. Then what I'll do for this little area here, I'll take another piece of cloth and I'll cut an angle at it and I'll lay it down in there and trim it. That way I get a piece of cloth that goes this way to cover up those gaps, and then I'll put a couple gaps here, so when I put the next one over that, it'll cover those gaps. And then you'll always put another kind of stagger, big piece, little piece, big piece, little piece. That way you get that nice, you get all those gaps covered, but you still create a nice little, nice solid part right there. I'll do exactly the same thing in these two areas here. One piece overlapped. And another. Another one of those little filler pieces in this section. you'll notice I'm overlapping this a fairly significant amount over that large piece and over into the mold. That's just to transfer as much force that could be built up here from that little bit of from that cut on that first one as possible. Now that that's done, I'll take another 100 grams of resin, mix it up, and I'll start slapping some unfilled, just regular straight laminating resin on there. And I'll put it down fairly thick on that piece of cloth I just put down, so it soaks it up, and then I'll take another piece of 2-ounce cloth, lay it down, and then that second layer of cloth will soak up a good bit of that first layer. The cloth I just put on is set at a 45-degree orientation to the root down here. And the next one will be set up so the cloth is orientated 90 degrees to that. Again, it's just like everything I've done in the past. It's all balanced. The layup for these I'm doing slightly different. I'm not doing them quite as thick. I'm doing 4 layers of 2 ounce, 4 layers of 2 ounce, 4 layers of 6 ounces, and then 3 layers of 18 ounce. And the only reason I'm doing that is because it has these vertical planes, so that makes them strong and fairly stable on by itself. So you don't have to go quite as thick as something flat like the horizontal stabs or the flaps. And again, I've got that tooling dough, that EL323 from AdTech. When I get to the new place, I'll mix up some of that, and I'm going to use that to stiffen those flat molds more and add some more thickness to the flanges. I'm going to try and get my flanges anywhere from probably 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch thick on everything. That way they're nice and thick. I can clamp them down and I don't have to worry about them warping and twisting over time. And those thick flanges also help kind of stabilize the molds and make them even stronger. So I'm going to put down one more piece of cloth down in this video, and I'm going to stop it just so it doesn't get extremely long. And the next video I'll start up as I'll do one doing the parting planes on those overwing fairings, because they're curved, and since the fairings themselves are cut to fit back into the fuselage with the flanges and all, I'll do a video showing how I'm going to do those. I still don't know how I'm going to do them, but we'll figure it out together, or at least I'll show you once I figure out the first one. I'll show you the second one, and then the video after that I'll get on here popping this mold out, this mold half back off, and starting the second one of this vertical fin, and the other side of that ventral fin. Again, I'm just putting this layer of cloth down, or this layer of resin down really thick, and then the next layer of cloth will soak up some of that excess resin. And for flange thickness, I'm just taking this 2-inch tip brush, and I'm just kind of using that as a gauge on how far around the part to go. And the PVA spray probably 4 or 5 inches around the part in excess. That way I don't have to worry about it. A little bit extra resin getting out there and sticking the whole mold to it. But even this melamine, I've noticed that when the resin gets in an area you don't want it that doesn't have any PVA or wax, it releases fairly well. Again, you gotta be a little careful with this first layer of cloth. It wants to move a little bit, and you'll get air bubbles between the cloth and that cotton flock mixture. So you gotta kind of dab here and there and move the cotton flock around, and put a little bit more pressure on the cloth here and there, just to get rid of those air bubbles. Stressful sometimes because they don't want to move or they don't want to go away, in which case just take a little T-pin and just put it in the middle of the air bubble, and then do the same thing, just kind of stipple the brush around it, and you'll get rid of that bubble. Do the same thing here to this ventral fin, and always do the largest part. I get as much resin down on that as I can. That way it gets rid of some of it in this cup, so it doesn't start curing as fast. Again, I'm putting this down fairly thick. And the ventral fin, I'm only doing 3 layers of 2-ounce cloth. Just because if I have to make another mold because this one wears out, that's fine. I'll probably make another mold anyway, so I can mold 2 of these at once. Haven't completely decided yet. Second layer of 2-ounce here on the vertical. Again, I'm just using that same brush to brush the cloth down to get it laid down nice and flat. 2-ounce cloth is a little trickier to work with just because it doesn't conform as well because it's a fairly tight weave. But that 6-ounce and the 18-ounce, it'll conform to most everything you need it to go around. Some really tight stuff that are a little oddball shaped, it won't quite go around, but it does fairly well the majority of the time. If you're wondering which vertical fin this is the left one. It's more complicated of the two because it's got the little antenna that sticks off the back side of it. The right side one was fairly simple. The canopy frame went fairly well. There's a little bit of I guess we'll call it damage to the plug when I pulled it out, just because, well, it was just difficult to release for some reason. But it came out. It's still usable. Most of the damage was just to the litho detail sheets, but otherwise it's still good to go. The exhaust nozzle is done. It turned out really well. I may even try and mold an exhaust nozzle or two right before I move. That way I can double check their fit and finish and everything to the fuselage. But for now, that's where I'm going to stop on this one with you guys. And until next time, we'll see you in the shop.